Hey guys, oh my God. I said the other day the anti-corruption slash anti-Orwellian business is good here at a very broken system, and thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget, press like, press subscribe, share it around. The very fact that our government, our Western government, is doing this.
Have a look. This is what the face of corruption in Victoria looks like. See the little hackiness?
To me, and was caught out like this. Is probably enough reason any sane, decent human being should have a little like, hang on a minute, what is it that these horrible governments are trying to prevent us from hearing? As if that's not an insult to you personally. But anyhow, let me continue. So here we go. Today I've stumbled across in Western Australia the AI cameras and the facial recognition. Now, I choked. I just couldn't. One of my little favourite tricks or things in a very broken system, aside the fact that I have, for those of you who don't know, I'll try and be quick and I'll eventually stop doing this, but I had a car accident. My hard-working, normal life went from normal, hard-working, 6-day-a-week auto, tyre, spare parts type of guy to a heroin addiction. Dived in, and pretty soon I was bound by the system, home, and 10 years in the wilderness. But what happened to make me such an expert, if you like, which boggles my brain, I say this a lot, is I was asked to testify against a GEO-employed prison officer. I won't mention his name. I've mentioned his name enough. I mean no ill will to that prison officer. I say it merely to verify the truth in my words. But anyhow, so I was asked to interview. I was interviewed by a Victoria police in relation to a criminal matter a GEO-employed prison officer got into. That turned me into a whistleblower and dragged me into all manner of nonsense, and I wasn't going to bow down to that. So I told them in effect to go, who knows? I handled it poorly slash well. It depends which way you look at it, I guess. But anyhow, whatever the case, we ended up with what I showed you earlier, where they've like literally had undercover corrupt police pretending to be property managers to sign me into places that are filled with gadgets trying to prevent me from being a free, normal Australian citizen, not from any criminality, just from the fact that I dare speak up about the corruption I was exposed to at the hands when I was bound by the system, bound by the Victorian state government. But anyhow, so it makes me a little bit of an expert. Self-proclaimed, not at all. I know what I know as fact. And now, so will you guys, which is the whole point of a very broken system, because it became clear to me that there's a lot of very much a lot of mistruths and like manipulate. Like, people do not get told the facts of the entire drug system, and this is a perfect example. Here we have them wheeling out 1 month before the wonderful, I couldn't believe, is that Rick Arden still telling the news in WA? He was the news guy when I left 20 something years ago. Talk about not wanting to talk about resisting change. Anyhow, so here's Rick Arden and Sue, I forget her name, but same people, same Channel 7 newsreaders when I was a kid. Anyhow, let me continue. I think there's a bit of a story in there how both of them haven't aged. But anyhow, let's continue. So here they are, the AI, the police. I'll show you here.
Facial recognition cameras have revealed the number of criminals walking among us in Perth. 20 wanted people have been scooped up off the street in just 1 week.
Even today, a media conference spooking the cameras was interrupted as they detected wanted people, forcing police into action.
What a coincidence.
As the Commissioner spruiks his new technology, he's interrupted mid-sentence. The facial recognition camera's detecting a wanted person in the middle of his media conference. This woman was wanted for allegedly failing to appear in court, but it wasn't just a one-off. There were 3 arrests
Of course she
within
was.
an hour, all picked up by the new cameras in Mirrabooka.
Been happening all week.
The new cameras screen passers-by against the police database for people wanted by police. A positive match alerting officers. Everyone else's identity hidden from officers and deleted.
There's no information to hack other than the face of the person who already has an arrest warrant.
If you haven't committed a crime, if you're not wanted by a court, if you're not a sex offender, there's not any interest in you.
At least 24 wanted people have been arrested so far. Plus 21 registered sex offenders detected and spoken to by police.
We've run out of arrest vans very quickly because we've had a couple of alerts. It keeps us busy.
The camera's also helping carry out 2 welfare checks. They've been trialled in the city, Midland and Mirrabooka. Since the trial began, more than 130,000 faces have been scanned. Of those, just 2 were false alerts. A case of digital mistaken identity.
How?
This is why we have a human in the
That's a
loop.
barefaced lie.
This technology is equivalent to a police officer going, I think that person is. Or that might be.
How?
Week into a
How can they
5-month
scan
trial, the results of the Australian first
the known
technology
criminals
already impressive.
The results
without
send a very strong
having...
message.
How can they scan the known criminals without comparing it to the unknown criminals?
Wielding out the story on the AI, and then 1 month before that story, they were wielding out how the prison system was a mess, a farce, in disrepair, which any Victorian Aussie could resonate with strongly. We've got reports of ghost prisons, of transgender, non-biological women, excuse me if I've accidentally offended anybody, literally people with penises locked in the penises convicted on rape and pedophilia, locked in the same cell with a woman with a vagina, and then wondering, gee, that poor lady ended up getting raped. Like, we've got that in the Victorian prison system. So here's my point. They're going to, yes, we'll out for your safety, mind you. These people have been walking amongst you. That's right, have a listen. They've been walking amongst you.
Facial recognition cameras have revealed the number of criminals walking among us in Perth.
That's right, careful. And they go, there's no data to be hacked, and it's not that. You have to. How? What are they going to just mysteriously go, yeah, got one. That one happened to be a criminal. How are they going to know unless they compare your face, an innocent person that needs all this protection? How are they going to know unless they compare your face against the criminal's face? They're not. So obviously they're tracking everything. And I'll remind you all, ladies, this is what makes me the self-proclaimed expert of sorts. Because when your life falls apart and you end up homeless and dragged through, you learn things like, it boggles my brain. It astounds me when we hear of facial recognition being illegal, where it was no secret that as far back as when Crown was boasting about it, Crown, the casino in Victoria, was boasting about using facial recognition tech to keep the Carl Williams and Tony Mockbells out of their gambling rooms. It was no secret that technology was being used through the CBD and through major supermarkets and what have you. So it kind of boggles my brain. My point there is they don't adhere to these laws clearly. So here they have them wielding out this new technology that you don't have to fear. Ladies and gentlemen, I have had this technology weaponized against me. Literally, I have had the Victorian state government weaponize the exact tech to try and use what they were trying to do, in effect. Not even in effect. What they were trying to do is silence me. because my words were bad. I was calling out their corruption. So what they did in that sense was basically tried to have me, any word I ever said, be it on camera, be it through a hacked phone, turned against me. I'd hear my words on mainstream media. I'd hear my words being spoken to by people in a class, people who were part of a social media campaign against me. I'd hear my words through a magistrate. I'd hear my words through a drug court order because they were trying to silence me. They were trying to, you know, I'd even go, how bad is this? I'd even go to, a few years ago, one of their conditioning schools, Odyssey House, the drug rehab centre. It was literally set up as that much of a conditioning school. They had counsellors pretending that my gossip was half the reason I was on the drugs. And the fact that I talk like I am here is the reason that I was addicted to heroin, and I needed to change those behaviours because bonkers. Let's stick to the topic at hand. And the topic at hand is this Orwellian existence. So here we have this Orwellian existence wheeled out, and what gets me, like what grinds my gears, aside the lies, aside just what you saw there, the absolute does not make sense. On one story they're talking about how we're going to lock more people up and we're going to be like super police, and the next breath there, not even the next breath, the breath before that, they're basically like, we can't afford our prisons, we don't know where to get staff from, our prisons are crumbling, we can't keep up. There's, you know,
But look, ladies and gentlemen, within 1 month, we've gone from riot fears, from a crumbling prison system, to AI, Orwellian style AI helping police nab feared homeless style criminals from walking amongst you. Have a listen. This was 1 month ago.
Is in imminent danger. As Cassidy Moscone reports, there are calls for the Corrective Services Minister to be sacked.
Greenock Regional Prison Riots 2018. 10 inmates on the run, the rest on a rampage. The damage bill for taxpayers, hundreds of millions. Tonight, there are fears prisons are set to explode again.
In Victoria, we have 638,000 recorded incidents, crimes where they rung up. Now you got to remember that's potential. That's a potential for umpteen times 638,000, because that figure is 10 times that. Let me continue. So we then have to go with those 638. I'm sorry, I've only used Victoria, my state, but it would be the same Australia-wide. Our courts saw in the same year that we had 638,000 people ring up reporting a crime, we saw 220,000. So, hello, where's your 400,000? And you want to wield out this super duper technology to drag the people off the streets, the low level, because that's not going to be the organised criminals. That's not going to be the people organised who know how to steal a car and drive it out there and leave it in bush, and then 3 cars they go on a little convoy and do 3 different car drops, so they're well and truly off camera, all masked up from head to toe, from woe to go, until they unmask in a paddock in a country area or something where they torch the car, out the back of Melton, Bacchus Marsh, where anybody who lives in those areas, in Perth it would be Wangaratta, Wanneroo, they all have those areas where they're just like stolen car dumping grounds, and all freedom removing. There'll be not one difference in crime. In fact, the same thing was said about CCTV so many years ago. CCTV was going to be the be-all and end-all. We're going to have CCTV everywhere. It's going to reduce crime. What's it done? Made it as simple as this. People just battle the CCTV. So all I have to do is beat the camera and I beat the system. All I have to do is beat, and that's where we're going with technology. You're going to end up relying on this tech. Yeah, great, we got this, look at that. What's it going to achieve? Nothing. It's just going to remove more of your freedoms and be one step closer to this. Which is exactly what they did to me on the Melbourne drug court order, which makes me such an expert. They literally did things like breach my premises and install... Have another look. Things like that with AI chatbot, because they're all speaker and microphone equipped, obviously. So they then have a chatbot coming out of it. Literally. Welcome to Orwellian's world. You are one step closer to legislation being passed where all new residentials have to have the non-invasive, non-obtrusive, approved AI-filled smoke detector. And if you're not doing anything wrong, ladies and gentlemen, you got nothing to worry about.